Hello and welcome to WS Podcast. My name is Wojciech Salski, I'll be your host for today. And before we begin, may I just remind you, if you find this podcast useful, entertaining, interesting in any shape, way or form, then please click the follow button, subscribe on the channel on whichever you are, and also do not hesitate to share it with a friend, maybe comment on one of the posts and so forth. It helps the podcast to grow. It makes my, entertaining job a bit easier, and it's just a great way of supporting this adventure of mine. So if you find this useful, then please do so, and I deeply appreciate all of you who do. And if you'd like to support the podcast in any other way, maybe by suggesting one of the books I should read and review, maybe by just simply sending me an email, then please follow the link below, and there are options there to choose from. Now, before we jump in, and yes, you are correct. This is a very special episode in the sense that I did not plan to actually record it. I kind of left you on the note of our giveaway raffle, which is still going on, which I'll remind you about in a second. But yeah, I've decided, I have a spare weekend still before my grand adventure, about which I'll also mention a few words. And so I've decided, regardless of my voice, which I can imagine you can feel is a little bit off, I've decided to record this special episode for you because I have a few topics I'd like to cover that I feel are urgent enough to do so. And I was also encouraged by a friend from work to mention this on the podcast. So I thought, I might as well. And basically give you one more episode before my holiday break. So in terms of the raffle giveaway, if you have not yet, please make sure to check out the last week episode and basically to see whether or not you'd like to participate. I'm organizing this raffle giveaway for the 200th episode milestone. Basically, long story short, how it works is you have to subscribe to my channel, either on YouTube or Spotify or any other channel. You gotta comment and mention like 3 friends on one of the Instagram or TikTok posts, and as well send me an email basically saying what kind of a book, what theme of a book you'd like. And out of all of you who are participating, I'll basically raffle it up, mix it up, probably ask my younger brother to do so for me, and 3 of you will get from me a book of your suggestion. I will make sure to check that you don't have that book just yet, and also some other goodies. So it's basically a way for me to gain traction, get more people to see the podcast and enjoy it, and at the same time to give back to those of you who are active and who are engaging. So a big thank you for that, and I'm excited to hear what kind of books you're after. So if you'd like to support this, if you'd like to take part in the giveaway raffle, then please do, and I'll put the link below as well for the episode that I've mentioned, so you can check it out, see the rules, and follow them. Now let's jump right in, I guess. I'll just take a note here to give you the link there. So for today, I've prepared a trifecta, if you will, three topics that I'd like to cover. 3, not that major, but 3 topics for sure. First one being fasting, and I do mean fasting in a sense of not eating for a while, and I'll explore in a second why is this a topic that I decided to talk about. This is exactly the topic that my friend from work suggested that I do share with my audience, so we'll go into that. Then secondly, I'll chat with you a little bit about holidays and in general, Easter and holidays as a time in one's life, and maybe my attitude towards it, and maybe give you some fun ideas how you can make the most of the time with your loved ones, either the time that you've now passed and you might be preparing, or the one that's coming up later on in the year. And finally, even though this podcast for the time being, and I'm planning to keep it that way for a while, has been tiptoeing around rather than facing head on the many turbulent topics and situations from the world, I thought I'll share some thoughts on the way your attitude and maybe on the ways in which you can make yours and your loved ones' situation better, regardless of what's yet to come. I can see, now I've been to Poland for a few days. I can see the anticipation and the troubling, I guess, through which people are going through. There is a huge amount of uncertainty on the market, in terms of economy, in terms of some geopolitical changes or potential for changes, in terms of conflicts that are happening worldwide still, even though one would hope that by now humanity would not be engaging in wars, and yet here we are. And so I just thought, why don't I share with you some of my thoughts on this, not necessarily to express, my perspectives. I'll keep my opinions to myself, but to maybe help you consider and encourage you to consider how you can make yours and your loved ones' situation better, or keep it as it is right now, regardless of what's to come. And also how to alleviate maybe some of that worry and anger or fear or frustration, helplessness maybe, that you might be feeling. And, it's simply, I guess, an exploration of what one can do with the limited abilities we have. And so, yeah, I just thought, I don't want to be completely silent on these topics. I do also feel as well that there is not much benefit of me sharing with you what I think about the situations that are happening, rather simply because I don't know that much about them, and who am I to tell you? I'm not an authority in those topics. I'm much better telling you about a book that I've read, or explore a concept that I've actually explored for myself in depth. But I can imagine that there is a certain quality and value in me sharing with you some of my attitudes and some of my, I guess, approaches. And maybe, through exploring that with you, I will give you an inspiration, invite you to consider whether these are some approaches that you can take on for yourself in these times. So yeah, fasting, holidays, and turbulent times. That's, I guess, the title of the episode. I have not decided on the title yet, but it might just be. So yeah, thank you for joining. Let's kick it off, shall we? So, a fun fact on fasting is that I've just before going for my Easter break to Poland, I've done a 84-hour fast. The goal originally was 72 hours, but then I figured out that since my flight is early in the morning, I might as well push it till the moment when I see my girlfriend, and I'll break fast then. And so I've decided to push it to 84 hours. Now, in terms of why I'm sharing this with you, quite frankly, my colleagues at work were rather horrified and taken aback, surprised maybe, dumbfounded by my, case. Because I came to work on Monday morning and announced that after being prodded about the fact that I'm not eating just yet, even though I do intermittent fasting daily. So that was not exactly completely different. But then at some point, after some prodding, they got to hear that I've decided to do a 3-day fast, which basically is the rule is don't get any calories into your body, right? So as long as you're not eating, and as long as you're not drinking anything that contains calories, you'll be okay. And so I've decided to do the fast, and then my colleague started asking many questions: how to do it, why am I doing it? And at some point they made me realize that maybe this is a good idea for a podcast. And then here we are. I've decided not to make the whole episode about fasting, simply because I'm not a fasting expert. So I'll share with you what I do. And please bear in mind, this is in no shape or way health advice. You should, by all means, inform yourself, maybe get some consultation if you have any, doctor or any dietary requirements and so forth. I'll just share with you my experience, what works for me, and you're welcome to try it, to look it up, to explore. There are many podcasts out there. There are many sources out there of podcasts and so forth that can give you a much greater, much more in-depth view on this topic. So in a way, this is a disclaimer that I'm not giving you dietary advice in this episode. I'm simply sharing with you what works for me and what I've done. Now, in terms of why, that's the most important question, I guess, the most interesting one, which my friend asked me. My first simple answer is I like to challenge myself, and this is actually not the first time that I've done a 3-day fast. I was first introduced to keto diet, which is essentially a diet that contains of not eating any carbohydrates, which basically allows your body to be burning fat as the primary source of energy. I was first introduced to it a few years back at a few-day retreat where we swam in ice-cold water, we meditated, and we also learned about ketosis and about fasting, and we fasted. It was a funny little thing that my mom was making fun of me that I paid to participate in a trip in which during which they actually did not feed me. And she sort of laughed, what are you paying for? So in terms of the why, for me, it's a mixture of 4 things, I guess. First of all, as I said, I like to challenge myself, and I feel like self-discipline is something that I like to challenge the most. It's something that keeps me in good health and good shape, in good state of mind, and it is my greatest asset, my strong will and self-discipline. And so for it to be strong, I have to practice it. And so such an activity as 3-day fast, especially in the run-up to Easter, when everyone's sharing all the sweets with you every day at work, is I think a great opportunity to try yourself, to challenge yourself. Now, secondly, I've done it for spiritual reasons, for not religious maybe, but one could say religious. I literally had a thought a few days prior to my start of the fast about the idea of Lent and how, in Muslim tradition you have Ramadan, and in Christian tradition, for example, you have the 40-day Lent prior to Easter holidays. And I thought, like, why why do we do it? And then I was thinking about this idea that maybe it goes back all the way to the idea of rebirth, right? And so in a way, the moment you stop eating, your body is in a state of somewhat of a stress-like response, sort of survival instinct kicks in. You cleanse the organism, which is another reason why I do it in general. And so I thought this might be a spiritual experience to do prior to Easter, to prepare myself better for Easter holidays. Not for any, particular end, rather simply to experience it and to challenge myself. And so cleansing is definitely one of them. I think this is one of the bigger benefits, and this is certainly what my Indian friend at work pointed out as the greatest benefit of fasting, which is basically just allowing your body to cleanse yourself of all the stuff, right? Because if you are constantly eating, it's like using a machine constantly. If you're constantly using a machine without allowing it some time to rest and maybe to clean, then it simply does not have that time to allocate. Whereas if you allow yourself to not eat for some time, ideally for a day or 2 or 3, your body will naturally have more space, more time to do all these little activities that it does when it has nothing to do. And as you can imagine, your body being an amazing organism it will find something for itself to do, and no question about it. And then finally, I've done it for clarity. And this is something that I'm experiencing every day, basically, at this point of 14th or 16th hour of my intermittent fast, which is I simply feel slightly high. I mean, I feel more vigilant, more aware. I've also noticed that during the second day of fasting this time round, I've noticed I was much more at peace with my interactions with others, which is interesting because, even though I might not be the most socially awkward and anxious person there is, but I certainly do suffer from time to time from those awkward moments or feelings of basically self-awareness gone wrong, when you start overthinking whether or not what you're doing or how you're looking or where you're looking is affecting others and what others think of you. And I've noticed that especially I've had that thought in particular on the second day of my fast, that I felt much more at peace, and I felt this sense of peace and clarity, which also allowed me to have really great conversations with others, including that friend of mine from work that we've decided to, after talking to them, I've decided to make this podcast. So it's interesting, these are the 4 components, I guess, of my why: the clarity, the self-discipline, the spiritual experience, and the cleansing of the organism, which got me to do it, I guess, which were my why. And then in terms of how I did it, I'll just share with you this simple, my own, and please don't quote me on this, please research it yourself. So as with everything, inform yourself first so you can really make an informed choice as well. I basically kept to drinking plenty of water. I've had some sodium, which was basically Himalayan salt dissolved in water, and some magnesium tablets before bed. Apparently it helps to fall asleep, and you can find that you might have some troubles falling asleep during such a long fast. And then I've drank some black tea or coffee. I actually had 2 coffees a day in the 1 coffee in the morning, 1 coffee in early noon-ish time. And then I also drank some calories-free electrolytes mixes, mostly vitamins like vitamin C and so forth, and those fizzy ones that you can dissolve in water to drink. So as you can see, for the most part it was water and then a little bit of salt and magnesium. But of course, I bet there are some alternative approaches to research and engage with. Now, maybe the one last thing on this topic. Sorry. One last thing on this topic is this these two states that I've heard about that I would encourage you to research, that are actually occurring even when you're doing just intermittent fasting. And as I said, I've been doing intermittent fasting for over a year now, I think, which basically is just eating in the 8-hour window and not eating for 16 hours. Now, apparently somewhere around 14-hour mark after not eating, your cells start to clean up. It's the process called autophagy, and it's basically like a cleaning spree within your cells and within your organism, where cells basically find pieces of themselves or entire cells that are malfunctioning, and basically getting rid of them, which is why I've heard, at least on the courses I've been to, that fasting can be a great support for anyone struggling with some autoimmune disease or some, cancerous states of the body, because it basically cleans first the weak parts as it tries to to keep the body in top shape. And now apparently somewhere around those 14 or 16 hours, ketosis kicks in, which is basically I guess a process, a state of the body in which our bodies, which are naturally prepared to do so, we simply have overabundance of food, and so ketosis don't really occur in us unless we make a conscious effort for it to occur by giving it the right environment. Apparently, ketosis is basically this process of burning fat as primary source of fuel. So, in contrast to how you might be eating an average meal, like if you're eating a sandwich, the simple sugars from the bread are most likely to hit your body first as the source of nutrition, because they are the quickest to be utilized and burned for energy. Now, the moment you don't provide your body with carbohydrates, the moment you provide your body only with fats and potential, protein or whatever, the body at some point can get into this ketosis state, which allows the body to primarily draw energy from its fat storage rather than the belly itself directly. And so, please look into this. I've done keto diet for a while. I enjoyed it. I, simply like bread too much, so I am eating bread these days. But it's certainly something for you to also look into if you're interested. For me, the one important takeaway from the whole experience of fasting is showing to myself, proving to myself just how much discipline I can have, and also experiencing real time how my body changes and how my feeling, sensations of the body change as I go through it. I've lost, which, I'm going to say I've lost 3 kilos over 3 days, which is true in terms of my weighting myself every day. But of course, I'm pretty sure by now, after a few days of being back, to usual state of affairs, I'm pretty sure I've gained back my weight. I guess one could argue whether or not that weight right now is different than the one that was there before. Regardless, if you are interested in also losing some weight, intermittent fasting or any other form of fasting, even such fasting as a few days fasting, could certainly be an option for you as well. And it's certainly a great challenge and opportunity to challenge yourself to do so. Now, before I go to the second topic, may I just remind you again, as a disclaimer for my own safety and for yours, this is no dietary advice, right? I'm just sharing what worked for me. If you want to try it, be my guest, check out some sources, research it, consult someone who's an expert, and good luck. I bet you're gonna have an amazing time as an experience, because it simply is an experience after all. Now, in terms of my second topic for you, I wanted to briefly touch on this idea of holidays, right? So we've just been through Easter holidays. I don't know how much you celebrate it. For me and my family and my girlfriend's family, these holidays are very, very special. For some of them, for example, for my girlfriend's family, these holidays are very special more due to the nature of our sort of Polish Catholicism faith and tradition. For my family on my mom's side, or on my mom's and on my dad's side, I mean, for my family, they always have been very, very important. We might have not been as church focused as my girlfriend's family is, but nevertheless, both Easter holidays and Christmas holidays are simply the times that we are together as a family, and so I would never miss it. The only time I think that I've missed one of these holidays was when I was away and simply couldn't come back. I think it was around COVID time, and there was just no other way, and so I didn't go. But for the most part, I'm always there. And this time round, I've spent the majority of my time with my girlfriend's family, which was also a great experience to see how other people celebrate, because I'm only used to what I do and what my family does. So in terms of the things that I wanted to share with you here, the one thing that we've noticed, and we've discussed it yesterday with my girlfriend, is the fact that we've been away from our phones for so long. We barely touched our phones during that time. We barely touched any screens, for that matter, during those days, which was both really, really wonderful, because quite frankly, I felt much more relaxed, not getting all the information about the world all of the time, especially that the majority of it is not necessarily the positive one. And secondly, it was definitely improving, greatly enhancing the quality of our time together, simply because we were not distracted by these devices and we were not distracted by screens. We were more involved and we were more engaged in the moment. We were more present, right? So, I guess my invitation for you, for your time with your loved ones, and this is exactly what we've mentioned in the episode, cherish the time with your loved ones. I'll link it below. I'm not sure what exactly was the title about it, but I've done a special episode about it a while back, that, we have a limited amount of time in our lives, and we have even more of such limit when it comes to spending time with our loved ones, especially those that are older than us, simply because they are older than us, so they have less time left, and also by the fact that probably by now you're no longer living with your parents, or maybe you're not even living nearby to them, such as myself. And so My time with my parents, I can certainly feel, is limited. Of course, if I were to move back to Poland, potentially that rate of meeting would increase, and I'm hoping to do that. Nevertheless, there is a limit to it, and so if you are with them in that limited time you have, and yet you spend that time on your phone or looking at a screen that distracts you from them, essentially you're wasting that time with them, right? You're missing out on that time. And so my invitation to you is to consider this really, really deeply, and consider simply putting away your phone when you're with your loved ones. Maybe a good strategy for the whole family, and we've already discussed that during the episode about the Anxious Generation book. Maybe a good strategy would be to simply not have phones or screens in the living room or in the room when you are celebrating, Maybe you should have a policy that only after the first, 5 hours of celebration, however long you're spending your time with your loved ones during Easter or Christmas holidays, you're allowed to pick up your phone. And I don't want to here, introduce any rules to your household. I'm simply suggesting some tweaks that might help promote this phone-free zone, which I think I felt, and my girlfriend would definitely agree, was particularly impactful on our quality of this experience that we've had together. Now, in terms of the other areas, I can definitely say that it simply deepens the connection, and overall making time to spend time with your loved ones, even the ones that you're not particularly close to, or you don't particularly know what to talk about with, or they're like a grandpa who is not really there to talk with, rather to talk at you, because he feels like he's alone and he just wants someone to talk to rather than with. I think it's really, really valuable, holiday time in general, and especially if it's family focused or community focused, however you'd like to spend it. The most vivid thing here that I've noted is you're just making memories, like on my day-to-day, my life is very, very similar, and I have great friends, I have great flatmate, I have a great girlfriend, I have a great life, don't get me wrong, but in a day-to-day mundane time, I don't usually have the opportunity to share quality in-depth conversation or quality in-depth time with my family and with my loved ones from back home. And so for me it's particularly special to go either for holidays or Easter or Christmas and so forth, maybe for some wedding. Soon enough I am going for one in Poland of one of my friends as well. I just find it to be a very powerful moment to make memories, to share time together, and to also experience them live rather than over the phone, which I truly do cherish. And I think as I grow older, slowly but surely, I can see that cherishing happening more and more. I become more aware of the fleeting nature of time. And so, not to be morbid or anything, but I would like to ring the bell here for you to acknowledge that, and to make sure that the time you have with your loved ones counts, and that you make it count, right? Now, before I go into the turbulent times part, I just wanted to say, in terms of my holidays, I will be going away now for 3 or 4 weeks. So you will not hear from me on the Spotify/YouTube side. I will probably post a few videos on TikTok or Instagram, both to remind you and others about the giveaway activity that is happening all throughout, I think till the 20th of May, and or 14th of May, I'm not sure. And also just to maybe share some thoughts as I'm exploring the world. I have some ideas for brief videos, but I will not be recording a full-fledged episode. So do not anticipate, do not expect me to be back up until the 20th of May, I believe is the date. Now, in terms of the turbulent times topic, as I said, I don't want to, let's put it this way. I feel that because of the nature of our times and because of the noise and the many voices that are out there offering their insight, offering their opinions, and basically screaming at us at all times, some of them more polite than others, I don't think I would contribute much by sharing with you my own opinions on particular, political or geopolitical or economic matters. I don't think I know enough on these topics yet. I don't feel I'm an expert. I'm happy to talk about them with you and with others, but I'm not willing to just simply spew them out at you right now. And I think it's just not going to be helpful, I may have my opinions and that's fine, but I was thinking, how can I contribute to this? And my sort of guiding light, my northern star in this question of how can I contribute isn't actually how can I make my opinion heard, rather how can I help you and those like you, and hence those like me, find a certain level of assurance and peace and maybe some action focused, points to weather this storm, which is obviously, upon us. And whatever that storm you consider, the world is changing and it always has been changing. It just so happens that right now it feels like, it's even more intense than maybe a year ago. Although I would argue that it's always maximally intense at all times, because life is quite an intense endeavor, It's a life or death situation all the way, I guess. So I thought, I'll try to contribute by giving you some of my approach ideas and also just explore some of the topics. My most important thing to start with, I guess, is please bear in mind this quote from the media approach, which is, if it bleeds, it leads, right? I bet you've heard it. And if you haven't, then, now you did. And I'm surprised that you didn't before. It just so happens that because of our risk-averse nature, because of our, from what I remember from Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, which I'll link below as well, because it's actually quite relevant to the topic. It just so happens apparently that we are roughly 4 times more likely to pay attention or to make a decision based of our fear of failure or fear of loss or fear of danger than we are by making the decision based of our willingness to achieve something or our opportunity. So we're basically more risk averse. We are more likely to pay attention to what's dangerous than to what's, hopeful. And it just so happens that because of it, the media for, decades by now, and I don't think it will change anytime soon, has been capitalizing this, this tendency of ours to pay more attention to what's negative than to what's positive, to be more likely to be shocked, which leads to us actually reading, for example, the headline, reading the article, to exploring the website, to watching the video. Unfortunately, for example, in the podcast sphere, it is a certainty that if I were to name this episode with some sort of controversial sentence, it will get more views than if I'm naming it as it is named right now, which is fairly, neutral sort of naming scheme. And on one hand, I guess, I could take advantage of it. On the other, it's a discussion for another time whether or not I should, and why am I not doing it. But just so you remember, just so you contextualize this, we are so overwhelmed with information these days, and the majority of it is not necessarily positive. And that's for a reason. We are more drawn to what's not positive because we are risk averse at our core. It's our survival instinct, our reptilian brain, that part of our brain which has been with us since we were reptiles, that is just ringing the alarm bells and making us pay attention. It might be useful in a short term of survival instinct, but in terms of dealing with the complexity of the world, and most importantly, not being overwhelmed by the stress of it all, it's actually to our detriment that it's there, right? So I'm just gonna write this here. So I guess the quote here that I wanted to start with as well is, I've heard it some time ago on a podcast, that it was a quote basically about the media, that we are not in the business of telling you what to think, but what to think about. That for the most part, even if your particular media channel that you're watching is not exactly propaganda, in a sense that the producers are not trying to tell you what to think about the topic, it certainly is focused on showing you what to think about. And what we think about, as we remember from Deepak Chopra and David Hawkins, what we think about expands, right? Where attention goes, energy flows. Where you pay attention, what you pay attention to expands in your life. If you start paying more attention to your health, you will likely take action and you will likely get better at being healthy. If you start to pay more attention around you on the daily basis in search of this beautiful girl that you want to call your wife in the future, then you will notice more beautiful girls around you, even though you're still hanging around the same spaces you were in before. It's as simple as that. And so similarly, if you're consuming what the media tells you to focus on, you will see more of that. And the algorithms in particular, which is the tragic the tragic story from the Anxious Generation book that we've explored. The algorithms, especially on social media and on platforms online such as X or Instagram or TikTok, are particularly good at finding what you pay attention to and showing you more of that over time, which is a great sales mechanism. It's a great mechanism to maximize utilization of our attention. It's also a great trap for our brain. It's literally how you can waste a few hours on the phone not realizing what you've just done. And I bet you've had that experience before. I know I have. So just as we start this exploration, I wanted to point out to you to be aware that it is no coincidence, it is no mistake that the majority of things you will hear on the media about any topic will be tainted with negative and sort of scandalous or drastic or vulgar connotations. It's simply what shocks you that sells best, which is why the majority of what you will be presented with is likely to be like that. Now that I've painted that picture, my question, I guess the question to me should be what to do with it all, right? And my answer is fivefold. So it's literally a step by step. I was thinking, what do I do with it when I'm dealing with it on the daily basis? You know, I have many hopes and dreams. I will not be sharing what exactly I want to into my life. I think that's also opening myself up a bit too much to the world. But I want a lot from life, and I want a lot of good things to happen to me, to my loved ones. And quite frankly, with all the narratives that are being put out in the media these days, it seems like majority, or at least some of these dreams, are impossible. Maybe because of the potential risks involving what's happening in the world, maybe because of the geopolitical changes, maybe because of the economy. You know, there are many reasons where I could potentially find myself at a loss and thinking like, okay, well, it's all useless now and it's all hopeless because I won't be able to attain what I want from life, since the media tells me that it's going so wrong so quickly. My instinct to this is to disagree with it, though, and to have faith, simply because I've seen again and again in my life how adversity is usually what happens just before a success takes place. Like, there is friction. I might be going through a certain struggle, but then there is always the light at the end of the tunnel. I simply have faith that it's all going to be okay. But, you know, you could say it's not enough to just have faith. That sounds like some wishy-washy, you know, kind of simpleton approach. And, you know, for some, it may be true. My answer to you in that regard is I will actually take it a step further and actually act out a certain schedule of activities or schedule of thinking maybe that allows me to have that faith. So my 5 points for you in terms of what to do with it. Let's say that, you know, you've been told again and again over the past few months that where you live might not be a safe space in the next few years. Let's say that this is the case. This is the example case that I will use for this exploration. My first step that I would suggest to you that I would do is to first and foremost focus on yourself and your loved ones, on your immediate, most important, you know, family, friends, whatever you consider your community. Instead of worrying and thinking about the troubles of the whole nation or of the whole world, even worse, start small, right? Because we are all limited, and it seems to me that even just the grandiose of trying to worry for the whole world can be so tragically overwhelming that we will simply, you know, self-hinder from the get-go. So start small. Start with yourself. Start with your family. Start with your loved ones. Focus on them. So it's slightly smaller of a fish to fry to begin with. Now, second step. Focus on what you can do or have influence to change. There is no point in, and this will apply to everything, but in this particular example, there is no point in worrying about how the geopolitics of your country, let's say, will work out in the next 5 years if you have no immediate impact onto those decisions. If you live in a dictatorship and the dictator decides to sell your country or to divide it in four or to submerge it in water, and you have nothing to do, you have no way to change that decision, then it's simply not your decision to have, and so it's not your problem. This particular decision is not your problem. It's the offshoots of that decision that might become your problem. The most important thing is focus on what you can do. Focus on what you have influence on. So, for example, in the case of, let's say that your nation is at risk of, in the next few years not being a space for you anymore, well, start thinking, how can I find ways? Can I find ways? What ways are there to find a different space for me and my family, right? What are the avenues? What are the things that I can do? Can I get maybe a citizenship in a different place? Can I find myself a house, a flat? Can I find someone who's willing to help me relocate? These are activities, these are actions that you can take. And not only will they kind of start bulletproofing your situation into the future, but also they will bring back your faith. This is literally what I mean by saying have faith, with like a asterisk special mark on the side. Is like, yeah, just wishing for things to change and not doing anything about it is quite useless. But if you put into a certain plan, put into a certain level of thought, what can you do about it, and then you start acting upon it, you'll find that you will start having faith again in this whole plan, because you will see that things are changing, and so you will actually have more power over this. You will become your own, master in that regard. Number 3 is be patient and understanding with others. Do not judge, ye be judged. This is the quote from the Bible, of course. And my point here, most importantly, is that other people will have different opinions. What you think and what you do that might be a way of dealing with this circumstance is not what everyone else will be willing to do, will accept, or will agree to do, or will understand. That's okay. This point is particularly important when we talk about politics. I find again and again, and even with myself, I still struggle with the emotionality of these topics, the emotionality of politics, the emotionality of topics that are so widely spread over the media, and most importantly, most likely, they are also shared in the media in a very emotional manner, right? We don't like to see people suffer, and yet we are shown that every day. And so it's completely normal to get emotional about things, but it's within your power as as an independent and strong individual to not allow yourself to fall prey to these emotions, and to not judge others, to not get into fights with others over these things, to understand that some people will not understand, and to understand that some people you will not understand as well. And this point is simply so you can avoid getting into useless and energy draining conflicts with those around you about topics and about things that you have no impact upon, or about things that they are not willing to do. Everyone can choose for themselves. That's the whole, God-given right. And so you should be able and aware of choosing your battles and deciding whether or not this is situation in which I should try to convince that person. And from my perspective, from my experience, it seems like the least you can do is to share with them what you think, but you should not try to convince anyone of anything, because it simply doesn't work. That's at least my experience. I don't think people are, I don't think you can convince anyone about anything unless they start to be open about it and open to that idea to begin with. And it's unlikely to happen simply when you start screaming at one another and emotionally approach some very complex topic. So number 4 is, do not hesitate to doubt and ask further questions. Now, this is a part which is really, really important, I think, in terms of what the media tells us. Not only are the algorithms showing you exactly what you want to, or what the algorithm thinks you want to see, it's using the same efficiency to show another person exactly what it thinks they want to see. And it might just be a complete contradiction to what you're seeing. This is such an important and great, it's a blessing and a curse, I guess, but it's such an important point. The majority of misunderstandings I feel we are having these days, and this is something that I've heard Douglas Murray say on one of the podcasts recently, is this fact that we struggle to agree on facts. Because there is so much information out there, and there is so much, so many different facets and so many different emotionally driven responses and exploration to topics, that it truly takes great effort to understand and check whether something is true or not. And so, as counterintuitive as it may feel, I would encourage you to take everything with a pinch of salt. To first assume that it's not exactly true, and then verify. It's like this Bitcoin creed: don't trust, verify, as a way of checking. So, I'm not saying I'm doing it correctly. I bet there are many areas in which I'm still oblivious. But what I've started to do recently more is I found a channel for geopolitics. I found a channel which stands in complete contradiction to what my views on that particular geopolitics, sort of approach is. And so I listened to that gentleman, as well as to the other podcast, which, forms resonates more with my point of view on politics. And thanks to it, I can juxtapose what the opposition, quote unquote, says about the same topic, and it's so informative. I know it's not easy, and I bet you're not gonna like it as an idea, but if you truly want to explore a topic, I would urge you to find either a trusted friend that is in complete opposition to what your thoughts are, or find yourself a channel that allows you to explore the ideas from a completely different perspective, to get that contrast, to be able to find that golden middle. Because I think the world would be so much better in general if only we were able to understand the other's perspective. And it's usually the understanding that gets thrown out the window first when we start to argue. And finally, the last point is think, anticipate, improvise, and act. And act, I underlined here. You have to take action of some sort. And remember that if you're not taking any action, that's also an action, right? It's just inaction. But it's inevitable that the world will change. It's inevitable that there will be challenges, and it's inevitable that there will be opportunities. And it's up to you to act upon them or against them or with them, and act accordingly to the needs of yours and to the needs of those around you, and most importantly, to act on what you can and what you should think will shape, right? And the quote here from Ray Dalio is something that I have above my desk, and I think about this often, especially in terms of these turbulent times, is if you do not worry, you have to worry. If you do worry, you do not have to worry. So, obviously Ray Dalio is one of the many greats of the investing and sort of financial and macroeconomics approaches. And I guess the point here is that if you take time and anticipate and inform yourself and make some changes, you will be better prepared to face what's to come. And so if you worry about your physical safety, you will take action, and therefore you will be less likely that you have to worry about your physical safety going forwards. If you worry about your financial situation and your family's financial situation, you're more likely to do some things, of course, if you do act upon them, and therefore you will be less needing of worry going forward because you will be better prepared. And it applies to every aspect of your life. I'm not saying overthink everything and constantly worry, but there is a certain level of peace of mind that comes from understanding the challenge and then understanding the problem, I guess, and then finding somewhat of a solution and acting upon them. I don't remember who said it, but there is a quote that understanding your problem is solving it halfway, or something like that. So, just to point out, your areas of security, at least the ones that I, highlighted for myself as the most important ones, is of course physical safety, mental safety, and that's where defending your mind against the media and the overwhelm and the emotionality and the craziness of these waves of I guess mind viruses in a way. Some ideas are more pernicious than others, but certainly many of them are to our detriment. And financial security. These three seem to me that if we take care of these three, if we take care of our physical health and physical safety, if we take care about our mental health and mental security and financial health, you will be prepared for whatever is to come. On a positive note, what I do believe is that actually over time, as I said, it usually is the most dark just before it gets better, right? There is a saying, or a cliche, I guess, if you will, that the night is darkest just before dawn. And I truly have faith that it will be better and it will get better. I think we have some great times to come, and I believe that. And I don't have any particular proof for you, and I'm not gonna try to explain my stance. I'm maybe somewhat of an optimist. I think I do lean towards optimism, but just because I have faith that things will work out doesn't mean I'm not taking conscious effort day by day to improve my likelihood for me and my loved ones to be okay, whatever happens. It doesn't seem like a good strategy to only think about the trouble if trouble occurs, right? It's too late. If you only think about troubles and problems the moment problems appear, then you have a very short time window to act upon them, to change something. Whereas if you anticipate in advance, if you do plan as if just in case something could happen, you're more likely to skillfully and gracefully overcome these potential problems and challenges. So yeah, I think, as I said, focus on yourself and your loved ones. Start small. Focus on what you can change. Be patient and understanding with others. Do not hesitate to doubt. And think, anticipate, improvise, and act. These 5 steps, I guess, is what I would encourage you to ponder, to consider, and to not hesitate to ask further questions and to doubt, and to notice whenever your emotions are taking hold of you to the point that you're not thinking about the facts anymore, because that's exactly how the media is taking advantage of, the media, the propaganda, and all of that is taking advantage of us. It's using our emotional stimulus and response to basically manipulate us into certain reactions and to not think straight. So yeah, I hope that sheds a light and that helps. I truly do wish for you and your loved ones to be at peace and safe and sound. And I would love to see the world at peace for once. And I'm praying for that, every day. And I have no doubt we will get there at some point. It might just not be, not yet, right? Not yet. So yeah. As a reminder, please take part if you'd like in the giveaway raffle. Check out the previous episode for details, and I would love to have your name down for the raffle giveaway. And so thank you so much. If you'd like to support the podcast in any way, follow the link below. And if you've not yet, please make sure to click the follow or subscribe button. Now, as a final invitation for the week, because I wouldn't be myself if I didn't give you an invitation, I would encourage you to find some time in the coming week or weeks, as you wish, and ask yourself a few questions regarding these topics that we've explored, especially the one regarding troubling times. Think whether there are some activities that you could do over the next few days or regularly that could make you, your loved ones, your life situation, your community situation better and better prepared, just in case, It's, I guess it's simply the saying, better safe. What was it? Better safe and sound, better safe than, I don't know, I blanked there. What I meant to say is it's better to be prepared. In Polish there is a saying for it. It's better to be prepared and not have to use it than to not be prepared and having to use that unpreparedness, right? So yeah, I encourage you to ponder these and to take action, to not sit around waiting, but to take action and focus on what matters and focus on what you can change and to have faith. I know I do, and I think we'll be okay. So yeah, thank you so much for this rather long adventure. I did manage to squeeze 3 topics in, so that's fun. I wish you a wonderful, wonderful next few weeks. I will be back, I promise. Have a wonderful week as well. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.